Alright, welcome everyone. Yet another video here on the channel. Today it's going to be a Pauper replay video. The previous weekend I split the finals of a Pauper challenge and my weapon of choice was mono red Kuldotha. And yeah, let's quickly go through a deck tech before we get to the matches. So the creature suite of this deck has Goblin Blast Runner, a 1-mana 1/2. If you sacrifice a permanent, it gets +2/+0 and Menace. That is extremely relevant, so we need to look for cross synergies. I have 4 copies of Goblin Tomb Raider, which is just a really, really good one-drop with a great Furnace on turn 1. It's just a card that makes even good old Goblin Guide look silly. This is a 2/2 haste a lot of the time. Sometimes it's not, though, but yeah, just a solid card. 4 copies of Kuldotha Rebirth. You need to sacrifice an artifact, then you get 3 1/1s. That means we need a critical mass of artifacts. New edition Reckless Lackey. I hadn't played the card before this weekend, but it's pretty solid. Like, it's 1 more 1-drop. It attacks through X1s, doesn't die to sweepers that deal 1 damage to each creatures, has some late game usage, like sacrifice to draw a card and create a treasure token. That treasure token and sacrifice can maybe help trigger the Blast Runner, maybe help with Metalcraft, maybe help you draw into a lethal burn spell. 4 copies of Voldaren Epicure, like bread and butter, 1 mana, 1/1, pings for 1, and the blood token can cycle away mostly lands in the deck in a game where you just need to find the lethal burn spell. Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt, very, very straightforward choices. I play a split of Seal of Cleansing and Galvanic Blast. Getting Metalcraft is not that likely, but sometimes you have it and it's better. Seal of Cleansing is better because it's a permanent you can sacrifice to make sure Blast Runner's big. It's a permanent you can leave and play and have 0 mana interaction on the opponent's turn against some tier 1 decks. So I like the split. For Implement of Combustion, again, sacrifice fodder. It's an artifact, just like a solid cog in the machine, I would say. And then we have Synthesizer, which is an artifact. It has sacrifice ability for later, and yeah, it's just some good grindy element. Let's see. The sideboard has 4 sweepers for mirrors, fairies, sacred cats, stuff like that. Gorilla Shaman against artifact lands. Pyroblast against blue decks. Relic against dedicated graveyard decks or stuff like Dimir Terror, and then a couple of Flaring Pain against the pesky Prismatic Strands, which is really, really a good card against the deck. All right, let's get to the matches. Let's see what transpired. All right, this is round 1, game 3. I'm playing against Dimir Fairies, and I'm on the play for game 3 here. My hand is good. It kind of explodes if I draw land, and if I don't, at least I have some stuff to do, but I need to find the second land within... I'll say if it's in the top 1, I really, really like my spot. If it's top 2, it's acceptable, and anything after that is not the best. I go turn 1 Tomb Raider, hope to draw a land so I can go... Yeah, I draw the land, which is amazing for this hand. I decide to force in as much damage as possible early. I develop an artifact and play a hasty Tomb Raider, put my opponent to 16. Opponent passes here, representing Spellstutter Sprite, which is something I'm very, very aware of at this point. My hand is not very good at playing around Spellstutter, but if I remember correctly, my draw step is very kind to me here, and I draw an instant speed removal spell. Let's see if we can get to untap here. I remember, yeah, let's see. I draw a Pyroblast, which is also like the same. It kind of takes care of Spellstutter Sprite, so let's see how I play it. I play Blast Runner, and so no Spellstutter. The opponent will Spellstutter about anything in that spot. I believe what I do here is I... Oh, okay, I get Doombladed or a Cast Down, sure. I pass the turn holding a Pyroblast. Hopefully I'm going to counter Augur of Bolas. That's kind of the point of passing the turn with mana here. Then on my turn, I want a Synthesizer and like keep things going. Here's the Bolas. Pretty nice read from my part there. I draw a Tomb Raider. So here I was about to sacrifice the implement, I believe, but if I do that, sure, the blast runner gets 2 bigger power, but the other guys would lose 2 power combined, so obviously not a very good choice. I think I realize in time, and because I might want to sacrifice the implement next turn, I play a kind of a bad synthesizer here, in the sense that if I don't hit a land, it's just like wasted value, but it represents an artifact in play, so it's okay. I miss. The opponent's on Desperation Brainstorm. Opponent plays Fairies here. I draw Reckless Lackey, which is a pretty good draw, and I'm fairly sure my opponent concedes here. Yeah, my opponent concedes here. They don't have anything. I can sacrifice my implement, attack for 7, force to chump block. Like, this is just over if my opponent doesn't have interaction. So, yeah, they didn't have the best hand. They had cast down Augur Bolas, and that's about it. But a Brainstorm, so if, let's say my opponent finds something like Hydroblast, etc., maybe they're in a fine spot. But yeah, my draw was just too powerful. Once I found the second land, everything was possible. And yeah, we get a good start at the tournament. All right, next round, I'm playing against Golgari Gardens. I believe I am down a game. This is game 2. And yeah, this hand is decent. Well, it's super strong. The thing about this hand is I can start attacking here, but I don't have, like, I only have 1 artifact, meaning that I want to cast, Kuldotha's Rebirth, but then I'm going to lose my artifact, and maybe I have 2 dead Rebirths in hand. Let's see. Here, I thankfully remember I shouldn't do that first main phase, so get in for 3 and then do a second main phase. I'm really putting pressure on my opponent here, which I like a lot. The opponent has Defile and Spinning Darkness to stem the bleeding. Not ideal. I draw Chain Lightning, which isn't ideal at all. I mean, now I have 2 dead cards in hand, but I do have some creatures in play, so let's see. I get Edicted, I draw blank. I play out my land because of Synthesizer. Let's say I draw like Synthesizer into Synthesizer. I want to have my land developed. There are some chain reactions that where developing your land is important. Sometimes you need to hold it for blood token. The rat is bad news here. There is a window here that if I had 3 bolts, I would win the game, but not the case. I get swept here. Opponent's at 9. Opponent uses Deadly Dispute to draw into their deck. They're kind of in a trouble here mana-wise, it looks like. But this is a turning point of the game. I bolt my opponent, and it turns out I actually helped out their storm count for Weather the Storm, so the opponent gains 9, and now I have a mountain to climb. I do draw an artifact. It's like the best one. I get to cantrip. And now all of a sudden I have creatures in play again. The opponent goes to Witch's Cottage, puts back the rat, which is sad for my hand. That means I have to play it slow and kind of grind out the rat. Attack for 2. I believe I play out the seal and I pass here. Simply doesn't make sense to play out more tokens when my opponent has a sweeper at the ready. Crypt Rats pass. And I imagine we have kind of the same situation where I attack, the opponent sweeps. Yeah, they sweep. They're at 12. I play Rebirth, sacrificing the implement. I draw into another creature, another implement. Like, this is just, I can't do anything better, right? This is fine, right? I can't ask for more. The opponent goes Deadly Dispute into Lembas, into, I believe, another Weather the Storm. Yeah, gain 9. The opponent's back to 21. I try and keep up the pressure. I attack for how much here? 7. Deadly Disputing away the Limbus. Right now, I'm hopeful. Let me put it that way. I have double seal and a bunch of creatures. Opponent makes a plant as a blocker. I sacrifice a seal to make the Blast Runner plus Zone Menace. Try and force in as much damage as possible. My opponent gains... No, okay. They have a removal spell. I was about to say they gain 3 with the Limbus. They're at 8. So, chain lightning my opponent down to 5. My opponent finds another Crypt Rat. So now they can go sacrifice a Limbus, go to 8. and then sweep for 2, go to 6. So this way, there's no card on my deck that lets me combine with the seal for lethal. So my opponent did a good job of staying afloat here. Now my opponent becomes the Monarch. Like, this is already turn 11. Just think about that. Like, my deck is kind of hanging in there. Or you can say the opponent's deck is hanging in there. I don't know. So I sack my blood. I want to find Lightning Bolt to try and be the Monarch. I don't. I find a creature, though, which is not bad. Opponent plays more life gain, goes to 8. And plays an Edict. Now I only have a 1-2 left. The opponent can kind of sit back here. Bunch of cards in hand. Relatively healthy life total. So let's see what we can draw here. I draw Lightning Bolt. This is my only way to win the game. Kill my opponent to 1-3. Hope they don't have a removal, and I become the Monarch. I do become the Monarch. The opponent has 7 life. So obviously, all of a sudden, we have a game once more, even though this is turn 13. It's kind of absurd. More life gain. Fanatical Offering. Not a life gain card. The opponent also plays a Reckoner's Bargain, I believe, in that slot, basically. Here's a Campfire, meaning my opponent's going to gain 2 life every turn of the game. And I kind of have to overwhelm that. Here's a removal spell, which is okay, I guess. I draw blank, unfortunately. Rebirth. Doesn't do anything without an artifact. Opponent's at 11. Here's Reckoner's Bargain. Opponent's up to 13. Full Grip. Lembas. Ichor Wellspring. I'm still the Monarch, so I mean, who knows? Let's see what I do here. Huh. What? For some... I'm trying to think here. What was the reason I didn't Rebirth? This could just be a misplay. Ah, I know now. I think at this point I'm trying to play around like sorcery speed. I remember now, but I want to draw a Bushwhacker and kind of surprise my opponent. So that's why I'm trying to slow roll my Rebirth here. And there it is, the Bushwhacker. That's kind of what I wanted. I can remove my opponent's blocker. I can get in for 10 damage here if my opponent doesn't have anything. So that 10 damage here is significant, but my opponent still gained, I don't know how much life. I get swept here by Drown in Sorrow. This was kind of my way out, I think. Having the second Bushwhacker. Also note that I'm still the Monarch. It's kind of absurd. Try and go Bushwhacker, but my opponent has more removal, even Spinning Darkness to gain more life. This is not going well for me, I would say. My opponent just needs any creature to start attacking in the other direction. Here's a Synthesizer. I hit the third Bushwhacker, which unfortunately isn't anything to write home about. I get it for 2 damage. My opponent gains 2 life. Just remember, my opponent now has 2 Campfires. Now I get Edicted by the Blade. My opponent can flip the Blade into this consuming Sepulture, which will just drain me out slowly, and I concede the game. Like, this game was insane. This is turn 18, and I kind of had a shot until this point. But yeah, 1-1. I need to rattle up some wins to get to the promised land. Let's see if we can do it. All right, this is round 3, game 3. I believe I'm playing against Gates, which is like a big blue deck that is winning the late game against most decks, I would say. I lead on a Blast Runner here. My opponent has a Cleric, which is already like annoying, gaining 2 life. So what I do here is I play Reckless Lackey. Before playing my second land out, I attack. My opponent's going to block one of them, and then I can finish off the Cleric with Galvanic Blast, which means the Cleric is a gain 6, basically. Prevent 1 damage, gain 3, soak a burn spell. Like, super strong. But at least that card is out of the picture now. My opponent plays a Sacred Cat. That's another annoying card. I play Synthesizer and get countered, which was kind of predictable. The good thing is I can attack for 2, develop 2 more small things. one of them being a Blast Runner, and I have a Sacrifice Outlet. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking decent here for the circumstances. My opponent goes Squadron Hawk, which is not the worst, not the best. Like, it can combine with Sacred Cat for a good, double block. The opponent's endgame is basically having Basilisk Gate, targeting Sacred Cat, getting in for a crap ton of damage. So we want that to not happen, basically. So here, because of Hydroblast, you want to play out the card you least want to resolve, and I think in this case that is the Seal. Seal gets countered. I play a 2/2. My opponent's going to double block the 2/2, but I'm going to get in for 7 damage, and my opponent doesn't have anything in play. This game is very winnable. I think my opponent plays two Squadron Hawks that turn. I draw a Synthesizer into Brick. So here's let's see if I make some kind of trick here. Because there is a trick with Reckless Lackey. You can deal the first strike damage, then you can sacrifice the Lackey to make the Blast Runner bigger before regular damage. Let's see if I use that trick here. I actually can't remember. Oh, the opponent goes for double block. Okay. So I guess I deal the first strike damage, then sacrifice, because then I kill both the Hawks. That makes a bunch of sense. Here's first strike damage. Here's regular damage. Opponent's at 8. I draw another creature, which is kind of cool. I play that out. Let's see if the opponent has a better play than Hawk. They do. They have a Cleric and a Hawk, so that's kind of rough. I draw Galvanic Blast, and I'm at Metalcraft. Then afterwards, I crack my Synthesizer. Just like pretty standard sequencing. I get rid of the 1/3. So this time it gains 7 life. This gains 6 life. This gains 7 life. Like, it's a lot. Synthesizer. My opponent's gonna block. I can't remember. Maybe they block the 2/2. They don't block the 2/2, so they go to 5. I then play the Epicure. The opponent's at 4, putting on a lot of pressure here. Sacred Cat comes back. Crack the Synthesizer. I miss. Then I crack the Blood token. I find the Lightning Bolt, which is going to be very strong here because I'm going to make a almost lethal attack. I think the opponent has to block. And yeah, has to make like bad chump blocks. They survive at 1. I'm going to make sure to steal mana on my opponent's turn with the Bolt, so I pass. They find a brick and just concede, so I didn't even need the Bolt. So that puts us at 2-1, and hopefully we can rattle off some more wins. We took down the Cog stack, and yeah, let's see if we can continue. Okay, I'm on the draw against Bogles here. I'm up a game. Bogles is a tough matchup. If they get a creature going with lifelink, it's just over, so you want to be as fast as possible. So let's look at this hand. I believe I end up mulliganing this hand simply because it doesn't there are multiple reasons. If I don't find the land, I'm in trouble. And I have 4 sweepers that I sideboarded in, 2 Electricaries and 2 End of Festivities. So I believe I put this back. And I keep this. I can't really go further. I believe I bottom a Synthesizer. This is basically the same hand, but 1 less card. So it didn't really, the mulliganing didn't pay off. The opponent's on a mold at 5, though. The opponent exposes the Slippery Boggle. I play Reckless Lackey, get in for 1. The second line was a good draw. My opponent goes Commune. They find Armadillo Cloak. So I'm in trouble here, right? If the opponent has a Land Cycler or a Natural Drawn Plains, they put Armadillo Cloak on the Boggle, I'm really in trouble. So as the skilled magician I am, I play Experimental Synthesizer. I hit End the Festivities, and I kill the Boggle before it grows. Attack for 1. My opponent doesn't have a creature. I can Rebirth, sack the Synthesizer into a land. I can play Bushwhacker, attack for a bunch. And the opponent, yeah, I mean, they're at 7 life. What can you do here? Play another Haster out. Attack my opponent down to 1, I believe. Pass the turn for good measure. Lightning Bolt to finish the deal. Like, that and the Festivities, which is so clutch. And yeah, you need a little bit of luck in order to do well in a Magic tournament. And yeah, this was definitely one of the good spots for me. All right, this is round 5. I'm playing against white black. This is game 3, and yeah, my hand is pretty darn good. I believe I will play out the Blast Runner turn 1. I put in Duresses. This is a key point in the game. I only have a land and 4 creatures, so Brick Duress. I play Epicure. I play Tomb Raider with haste. At this point, I can conceal the information. The artifact is from the blood, so Tomb Raider has haste. This means my next turn is going to be quite absurd. I do get Edicted here, which is fair enough. And then I go Epicure, kicked, Bushwhacker, attack for 10, I believe, 9. So I put my opponent down to 6. Like, this draw was just absurd. My opponent now needs Swamp, Drown in Sorrow. They don't have it. They just concede. So easy as that, and now we have a win in the next round. Let's see if we can get it. Okay, I'm on the draw here against Jeskai Ephemerate. This hand's fine. I can get going with Tomb Raider. I have a lot of direct damage. Maybe I can get to Metalcraft and deal 4 at some point. Let's see what'll happen here. Tap land. I draw a 4th land, which is kind of bad. With 1 more tap land, I draw another Tomb Raider, which is a good draw. Put my opponent at 14 turn 2, using only creature damage. I play Chain Lightning because I play against a red deck, so Chain Lightning while you can is pretty good. I also have the Bolt in case my opponent plays a 1/3 like Augur Bogles as a blocker. So just using your mana here is good in case I get some like Synthesizer into Synthesizer and I need to tap out. Then it's just great to have unloaded your hand. I do get Blue Blasted there. And here's the Augur. Opponent finds Lauren Revealed. So here's the cool play. Because of Ephemerate, I play out Seal of Fire first. Then I play Lightning Bolt. The reason I do that is, if my opponent has Ephemerate, I have the 2 damage already in play and Galvanic Blast in hand. So while it's not really ideal to play Lightning Bolt, Seal, and Galvanic Blast to deal with Augur that already cantripped, and Ephemerate, it's better than the alternative that the opponent just gets all the value and has a blocker. So I take my medicine here, Galvanic Blast it, seal it, get in for 4. I don't have any more gas, but I do have a couple of 2/2s in play. I draw another brick, I get swept here, so this is basically where I don't really believe in this game, but let's see. I draw an Epicure. I kept the land in hand for that reason. Let's see what we draw into. Synthesizer. Into a land, which isn't very impressive. Opponent has 1,000,000 mana. Their end game is basically like Muldrifter, Archaeomancer, Ephemerate, stuff like that. But I get some decent draws here. My opponent has a Scred. I put my opponent to 8 here. It's like so close yet so far. Preordain. Here's Archaeomancer, taking back Blue Elemental Blast. I draw Kuldotha. I try and get in for 5. It's not going to happen. I want to get in for 2. My opponent's at 6. And they pass the turn here. This has Breath Weapon written all over it. Here's Ephemerate, targeting Breath Weapon. Sweeping the board. I can play my Epicure. My opponent's at 5, but I get countered here. My opponent's at 0 cards in hand. So, unfortunately, they draw Muldrifter, one of the best cards in the deck, and Augur into a counterspell. And this is where I need some serious help. Let's see. I go Implement into Seal. Their counterspell has Seal covered, but, has a top deck Lightning Bolt covered. But, if I can go, like, back-to-back Lightning Bolt, maybe I can sneak out this game. The opponent starting the offense. And know about the counterspell. My opponent did not play land, I believe, so I'm kind of sad about that, because that usually means spells in hand. I draw Pyroblast, which could be... it kind of cancels out the counterspell for later. And this is the card that seals the deal. Union of the Third Path. My opponent gains 4 life, draws a card. I know about the counterspell. this over. I throw in the towel. At this point, my tiebreakers are pretty good, so I have to sweat it out. And I guess we should just spoil that I made Tub 8 in 8th place. So yeah, more magic. All right, this is the quarterfinals. I'm up a game. I play against Golgari Gardens. And for this game, I'm going to try to just let the replay kind of play out. This is a very, very long game, so let's try, see how it works. I haven't tried it before. On the draw, I have one land, kind of more the same. Like if you find a second land, things are looking good. So here I play out the implement first because I play against the edict artifact. That means it's a sorcery speed removal. So this could be a way of cheating in 2 more damage that I wasn't supposed to get in. Compared to playing the Tomb Raider turn 1. Opponent does in fact take the damage. And there is the blade, so it's like, it's important with the sequencing, I would say. Crack the implement, start the grind, synthesizer into Tomb Raider, pretty decent. Those synthesizers will most likely be good later. My opponent's struggling a bit on mana. I make a 2/2. Attack my opponent down to 13. My opponent might have a removal spell. They don't. 13 is still life. I chain lighting my opponent down to 10. Here's a blade. I get rid of the red card. Crack another synthesizer. Hit a 1/1. Get in for a little bit of damage. Or at least I try to. Put my opponent to 8. Here's Epicure. And now I have 2 artifacts in play, so Metalcraft is not that far away. Opponent disputes to draw into their deck. They have a full grip, but falling behind on life total. Here's a Drown in Zorro, so everything dies on my side of the table. And here's a Lembas, which is some much needed life gain, as you can see. The opponent's life total is 7, so I try and bolt them end of turn. Unfortunately, they have Weather the Storm here to gain, I don't know how much, like 15. Gain 12, okay, they go to 16. I have how much damage here? I have like 7. Yeah, at this point, I'm not too optimistic. Get rid of a land for the blood. Develop another seal. Opponent cycles the troll for a tapped green source. Here's a campfire. So now my opponent's going to gain more and more life each turn. I mean, all I can do is just play my cards, hope for the best. My opponent at some point finds like a clock or whatever. I probably can't win. Here's the blade. They sacrifice a 1/1. The opponent gains 2. Funnily enough, the opponent could have flipped the blade into the unbeatable force that is consuming Sepulture, at least over enough turns. I think at this point my opponent's scared of me having a Bushwhacker. Here's Reckoner's Bargain, gaining the opponent more life. This just seems like hopeless at this stage. I really don't have much hope to win this game at this point. But at the same time, the opponent wrote some not very nice things in the chat, so I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna give up even the slightest equity here. I counter the Spinning Darkness life gain by sacrificing my Reckless Lackey. The opponent could have gone for killing a Goblin token in this spot. But they want to power Storm, so now they gain 16. So now they gained, no, it's not 16, it's 12. So it's like 12 plus 12 plus ongoing campfire plus sacrificing for Reckoner's Bargain. I mean, I just keep playing out my stuff and attacking. I'm playing with house money here, let me put it that way. So I put my opponent down to the dangerous life total that is 30. Here's a troll that I have to use 2 burn spells on. That's going to be a lightning bolt from hand and the seal in play. I draw a Lackey. Yeah, I decide to go for Synthesizer. It's like more mana efficient, I will say. Here's the Lackey. Here's the Implement. Attack with everything. The opponent takes the damage. They're still sitting at a healthy 25. Here's Crypt Rats for 2, killing everything. They're at 25 life, gaining 2 life each turn. Here's Rebirth into Chain Lightning. Fire that off. Pass. Opponent plays Wellspring. They're empty-handed here, by the way. Another Wellspring. Campfire activation. So right now, my 3 Goblin tokens are getting in for net 1 damage each turn cycle. It's like terrible. The opponent's empty-handed. Opponent chum blocks, that's fine. I don't sacrifice the seal. There's another Rebirth. I attack for 6. So now I actually have like a pretty big big board here that the opponent needs to do something about. Here comes a Hardcast Troll, which will effectively be like the Abyss. I shoot my opponent for 2 to enable the Menace. Opponent blocks 1, takes 8, goes down to 8. Turn 16, Echo Wellspring, gain 2, opponent at 10. I draw Voldaren Epicure, which is like the perfect draw because it lets me ping my opponent for 1, make the Blast Runner big, attack. My opponent blocks a Goblin token. That's 7 combat damage combined with my Galvanic Blast in hand, and that's exactly putting my opponent to 0, which I don't know how much life my opponent gained, but it must be close to like 50 life. Like it's really a lot, and it's extremely lucky that I emerged from this game. But nonetheless, I'm ready for the semifinals, and let's see how that went. All right, this is the semifinals of the Pauper Challenge. I'm playing Mono Red Kuldotha, and this is the 3rd and deciding game. I play against the same Jeskai Ephemerate opponent. Let's see if we can get the better of him in this rematch. Great hand, lots of 1-drops. I like, especially my favorite thing about the addition of Reckless Lackey is you have the triple 1-drop draw more often, and I think that's just very powerful. If the format reacts and everybody has like 3 or 4 sweepers, then of course bad things can happen, but I really like it. My opponent plays an Augur of Bogles, which finds Cast into the Fire, which is effectively like kill 2 1/1 tokens, pretty strong, at stemming the bleeding. I'm happy, well, you know, you got to do what you got to do. Chain Lightning the Augur, and then keep up the pressure. I'm not going to respect the sweeper here. I'm going to try and put my opponent dead. So attacking my opponent down to 11. They pass the turn. If they have the 3-mana sweeper, I'm most likely dead. If they don't, I really like my chances. I draw a brick. The opponent has a Cast into the Fire that we knew about, killing 2 tokens, taking 4 damage, so I like this. I play my land out because of Reckless Lackey. Let's say my opponent sweeps my board. I want to sacrifice my Lackey, still have 1 mana up for whatever the case may be. Here's Augur. Very annoying at this stage of the game. Here's Preordain. I draw a Synthesizer, which is a very, very good draw. Can't remember what I find. I find another Lackey. Sure. Well, I'll take it. At this stage, I'll attack with everything. If my opponent... my opponent's going to block a 1/1 here. And then I have the choice if I want to finish off the Augur with a Seal, or I'm going to use this on my opponent's life total. Add in the risk of the opponent having Ephemerate. I decide to hang on to the Seal. I think I like that decision. Opponent's now at 3. I spoke too soon. They're at 4 because they had a Scred. Here comes Muldrifter. So the cool thing about having Seal of Fire in play, actually, against this deck is the opponent can't go Muldrifter and then blink it with Ephemerate. Well, they can, but then I can kind of kill Muldrifter in response. The opponent's passing the turn here with only red and white mana up. Let's see if we can seal the deal. We couldn't seal the deal. So here, my read is the opponent has another removal, so that's why I don't crack the synthesizer. I leave up mana to sacrifice my lackey. Attack. The opponent blocks a 1/1. Let's see if they take the damage. They don't, because that would that would kill them. So Scred on lackey. I put my opponent to 3. I sacrifice it in response. Do we draw? So ironically, I draw Pyroblast, which would have been lethal if I synthesizer it into that one, and I kill my opponent's blocker. But that's how it is sometimes. This Pyroblast is hopefully going to be good in the future, canceling out a blast or a counterspell. Here, I don't sacrifice my synthesizer. I believe my plan here is to sacrifice lackey end of turn and try and find like lethal burn to win with. Here's a wildfire. I don't care about that. Opponent cycles, place another land. So let's see. I don't sacrifice the lackey end of turn, so that it wasn't my plan. Now I sacrifice synthesizer. I find a haste creature. So this is interesting. I remember this spot. I can play the Tomb Raider that my opponent knows about. Sure. Yeah, that's the thing. My opponent knows about it. So if they have a counter, they counter, because they can't take any damage this turn. Then they die to steal. So I play Tomb Raider. My opponent plays Counterspell, and I think what I was supposed to do here was No, maybe it's okay to counter. It's so tough. Like, I Pyroblast the Counterspell. My opponent has to Dispel, so I guess it doesn't matter too much in the end. I then, because I want to like isolate my opponent having, I don't know, Spell Pierce, Counterspell hand, I play the Implement out, sacrifice my treasure to play the Implement, and then I pass. Can't attack with the lackey. My opponent has the Late to Dinner, gain 3, go to 6. Muldrifter hits the field. I draw Kuldotha, which is a very good draw. So here, I decide to sacrifice the lackey, because I feel like if I find a lethal, like if I find a bolt, I'll go for it and just sacrifice my implement, play bolt, crack seal, make my opponent have the blast. So here, I sacrifice the treasure I just got to make 3 1/1s. That resolves. That creature also resolves. I'm back into the draw go situation here. My opponent has 6 cards in hand. This should be over. My opponent plays Murmuring Mystic, which is a card I can't beat with combat damage over the course of the game. I draw Pyroblast, which is a good draw. I crack my Implement. I draw Lightning Bolt, which is an even better draw. So now I have put my opponent at 5. I have a Seal in play, and I have a Bolt in hand with counter backup. So now what I need to do is just attack with 5 creatures. That means my opponent has to play a proactive spell, or I will force in combat damage. And that's the spot I need to strike. I said 5 creatures in the red zone. My opponent plays a blast on the 3/2 menace. Makes a bunch of sense. They get a 1/1, and now they have 4 blocks, meaning I don't get in for any more combat damage this turn. So my opponent only has 1 blue mana up, so this is my time to strike. I lightning bolt my opponent, I crack the seal, and it's over. I don't even need the Pyroblast, which is... I was surprised about that. And just like that, I punched my ticket to the finals, rather, where I was paired against a good friend of mine, Sebastian Pozzo, and he and I decided to call it a day. For me, it was getting kind of late, like I think it was maybe like 1 a.m. or something. And I get to split the challenge. I feel like the deck treated me very well. I had some interesting spots. I was lucky to top 8 in 8th seed. You always have to remember that. Like, I'll never take a top 8 for granted, even though I have so many under my belt. I love each and every one of them, and you never know when the next top 8 is going to be your last, right? So, very, very happy for that. I won an absolute once-in-a-lifetime game in the quarters against my opponent, who gained 50 life. This game, I also feel like I threaded the needle and got there. I feel like if I pass the turn here, I'm not winning the game. I needed to to put my opponent exactly dead, and sometimes the small margins, sometimes you earn it, sometimes the deck treats you well, sometimes it's a combination, but definitely a good run here. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough. I don't think this deck is, you know, incredibly hard, but I don't think it's that simple either. You have to sequence well to put yourself in a position to win. And speaking about putting yourself in a position to win, I'll publish a written article with MTG decks, and I'll definitely link it in the description or the comments. So that should be a good supplement to this video. I feel like if you're interested in either playing this deck or figuring out how to beat it. Yeah, as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.